that was all I could think of was, oh, we've made him happy. If not more than for a few minutes, it's well worth it. Tommy and I knew each other since we were 5 and 6 years old. We went to school together, but I've often told people, you know, I was the prude and he was the bad boy, so we really didn't have anything to do with one another until about the year before he got the car. The very first time I saw the car was in Frederick, Oklahoma. Tommy had had a '64 Ford Galaxy, and he'd had an accident in it trying to get to his ACT test on a foggy, dark morning and ran into some Angus cows and totaled it. So he didn't have a car for a little while, and I felt really sad for him. And my mother and I pulled up at the Sonic to get a hamburger, and we just about finished it, and here comes Red. And she drove into the Sonic, and of course she caught everybody's eye, and I didn't realize it was Tommy until it pulled in, and I realized it, and I said, "Mom, that is Tommy's car." And I knew he'd been shopping, and he and his buddy were in it, so I jumped out of the car and went over and told him all kinds of gushy things about how beautiful the car was, and he says, "Well, get in," and he opened the car door to let me in the back, you know, because his friend was in the front. And so I grabbed the car door and pulled it open farther, and at that time Sonic was kind of a new thing, and they had these big plastic tubs on the poles that you put your trash in, and the mirror on the driver's side went into the plastic bin, and when he shut the door, the mirror was just dangling. And this is my Tommy. He took it, tore it the rest of the way off, put it underneath the seat and said, "That's okay," and shut the door and got in. And his friend hated me. You know, it was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're dating her." But Tommy said, "I've got to take Mike home. You want to ride with us?" So I asked my mom, and she allowed me to ride back to Davidson, which was about 10 miles back with him. That was the first time I rode in Red. And I put my mark on her that first time. So. Tommy was always drag racing. You know, now that I look back, he cruised at 110 to 120 almost everywhere we went. One of my fondest memories of the car is the night Tommy proposed to me, and we were going to a dance. The Living Inn band was playing. And when I got in the car, we went down the road just a little ways, and he said, "Open the glove box. There's something in there for you." So I open it up, and there's the ring box. And I open it up, and he says, "So will you?" And of course I said yes, but I said, "I can't wear this into the dance." And he said, "Why not?" And I said, "Because I can't show somebody else we're engaged when my parents don't know." So we turned around and drove back to my house, and I showed Mom and Dad the ring and said, "We want to get married." And my dad cried just a little bit. A few tears went down his cheeks, and I was the fourth of 4 daughters. And he looked at Tommy, he says, "You got my last one." So then we were able to go to the dance, and I showed my ring off, and I still have it. We got married June 6th, 1969, and Tommy's biggest concern during the whole wedding was what was going to be done to his car. And he had hidden it about a mile down the road from his house at a neighbor's house in their garage because he didn't want anybody to do anything to the car. You know, his voice shook all during the wedding, and he says he was frightened of the wedding, but it was really his car, that he was afraid somebody'd do something to it. So anyway, when the reception and everything was over with and we ran out to the car, he had his best man drive. I have no idea why, but Anyway, so we run and jump in the passenger seat together, and they start to drive off, and he told Mike, his best man, to hit it, and it wouldn't go, it sputtered. They'd taken half of the spark plug wires off. It was probably a good deal because everybody was concerned about a chase, which is what normally happened after a wedding in our little town, that it could be dangerous. And so I still don't know who took the spark plug wires off, but I thank them to this day. So we drove about 10 miles down the road to the next town, put the spark plug wires back on, and then we had to come back because I'd forgotten my suitcase, and we just kept having to come back because there was something we forgot. But anyway, we took off, and actually we lived in southwestern Oklahoma, as far as you can get. And believe it or not, we came to Lake Texoma Lodge for our honeymoon. And Tommy wanted to stop and wash the car, and I said, no, leave the paint on just for one day. And of course, he's still worried about the paint. But we actually passed probably 3 highway patrolmen on that trip, doing about 110, and they just honked and waved. If we hadn't had the car painted, I don't think that would have happened, and I'm surprised it happened anyway. So, but we did wash the car the next morning. Tommy built a log home for us in 1980, and we had used the car up until that time. I mean, it was our family car. And at that time, he just parked it around beside the house and told us, this is going to be my project. I've heard too many old men say, I wish I'd kept my first car. And he said, I'm keeping it, and I'm going to redo it when I retire. And so just get ready. It's going to be here in the yard till that happens. And he had to scare a few thieves off that wanted to get the emblems off of it. You know, that happened several times. So he was very protective of it. And then when we moved to southeastern Oklahoma, Red went on a trailer and went with us and went in the yard at that house. So it was quite a while. Then I guess we moved into Durant in 2007, and he had a shop building, and that's what he parked it in then, and he felt a lot more secure, and he was going to fix it when he retired. And of course, by the time he retired, Alzheimer's had already started on him, and he just wasn't going to be able to do it. So it was a disappointment. But it was a yard ornament for us for many years.
I remember riding in the Chevelle quite frequently. I remember how hot the back seats were. They would always burn my legs if I had shorts on. I remember the smell. I had forgotten it until you restored it, and then that smell of vinyl and stuff has come back. Like, I remember it so well sitting back there. So I do remember that, and I remember probably because my grandmother repeated the story to me several times, but when I was about 4 or 5, one of my sisters was hurt, and Mom and Dad had to, I want to say that they took her to the hospital in my grandparents' car. And so my granny had to drive me in the Chevelle back home. And she always laughed about that. I said, are you sure you can drive this car, Granny? She was like, I'm a farm girl. I've been driving this kind of car my whole life. And I was like, okay. But I love that my granny used to love cars too, like we do. So I do remember the first time the car was parked and we no longer drove it because it was right underneath my upstairs bedroom window. So every night when I looked outside my bedroom window growing up, it was right under my window. In fact, I do remember a couple of times people would go out there and try to mess with the car, and I remember my dad getting really upset and actually chasing a guy off one time that I saw when I was looking out my bedroom window.
We decided that we needed to do something quickly because Tommy knew that he was slipping, and I did too. And so in 2014 is when he was diagnosed. with Alzheimer's, and so we started trying to find somebody, and we had no clue where to go. And somebody told us about a man that lived just across the river over in Texas that redid cars, so we went there to visit, and trying to be nice, it was really not a good deal. He had several cars he was working on, but he was the same age we were and not in good health. And he kind of shystered us and kept it for 3 years and had taken it all apart, and that was about it. He told us that he'd done some body work on it, but when we had somebody else take it over, no body work had been done. They just covered some places and sanded it a little bit. So that was a disappointment. By then, Tommy was really going downhill quickly, and so our daughter, Brandy, stepped in and said, "I'm taking it."
So when Dad was no longer capable of checking on the car or going places as frequently, I stepped in and asked my mother more questions about what was going on. The man that was supposed to restore the car would call her and tell her he needed more money for things, and there were just some questionable things. And then one day he called her and said, they're taking the shop away. I'm gonna have to move the car to my own home out in Cartwright, Oklahoma. And he said, I'm gonna move it into a little barn I have beside my house. And when Mother told me that, I was sick. I was like, I cannot believe this is happening. And Mother was like, well, I just can't do anything about it. I'm not gonna worry about it. But I was extremely worried. So I called a girlfriend of mine and took my husband's truck, didn't tell anybody. I just went out there and I told the guy, we're taking the car. I'm not talking to you about it. We're just loading it up. You know, you've taken my mom and dad's money. At this point, they had given him a lot more money than ever should have been given to him, and nothing was done except the car was in pieces. So we actually put the windshield in the pickup, the bumper, they were all in separate pieces. I had to call a tow truck to actually get the motor on, and a real sweet tow truck driver named Michael from B&B Tow Truck Company came out, and he actually did more helping us move the car than he probably should have, because it was just us two girls, you know, but he helped us move it all. I was sick, and so at that point I started trying to find a place that we could take it, and we found Heritage, which did the paint and then recommended you guys for the rest of the work.
Originally, Tommy wanted everything all original. He wanted to go back with everything, and if he had done it, that's probably what he would have done. But as we visited with your group, we realized that, there was a lot more we could do, and it would make it a little more special, and it is, and he's very proud of it. And so I am very thankful that Brandy found Classic Car Liquidators, because you all just made it a dream car, and the things that you've done to it have just made it that much better. And when he sees it, he just lights up like a light bulb. That's red, and he's excited about it. So
I knew Dad wanted to go original, but he never liked the original wheels. So when you start adding newer stuff on it, and you see that it looks better and nicer, so the encouragement with you guys knowing what all would make it look right, and just your knowledge about things that we didn't have, that knowledge helped us so much to make those decisions, because he wasn't really where he can make those decisions any longer. So we're so happy that it turned out the way that it did, because we probably wouldn't have gone this far, unless it had been somebody that we trusted working on it.
When the car first drove up and he recognized that it was red, and I saw how excited he was, I thought, oh great, this is so worth it. if nothing else happens, this is the best. But what really got me, and everybody that had visited with Tom earlier, he went down the steps in the video. I had been helping him up and down those steps. He was so uncertain and so slow going up and down them. When he saw red, he ran down those steps. It was like he was physically 100%, you know. He was so excited when he realized that was red. And then he started telling your dad, you know, rev her up, you know. It was every bit worth it. I mean, that was all I could think of was, oh, we've made him happy. If not more than for a few minutes, it's well worth it.
I'm driving this son of a bitch right now.
Now when I go to pick up my dad, which I try to make it about twice a week to take him on a ride. So I always park the car right out front, and when we walk out there, he says, "That's a Chevelle." I'm like, "Yeah, that's red." And it's like he doesn't remember that she was redone, and then he remembers it, and then when I'm getting him in the car and we drive somewhere, sometimes he'll give me pointers like, you know, you need to drive at an angle. He's always trying to correct my driving, and you don't need to drive newer cars like this. And I always say, "Dad, it's not a new car." I have to remind him, this is not a new car, this is your car, it's just been redone. And he's like, "This is red." It's always like, it's fun because I get to relive that all the time because it's like a new moment for him, and he's always like, "This is my car and we're riding in my car, this is awesome," you know. So
Since you have completed the car, we've really enjoyed being together, and everybody wants to drive it. They have to fight Brandy, but she's been really good about letting Kaylor drive when he wants to too, and that's been kind of a reconnection too, because Kaylor's the same age that Tom was when he bought the car, and so that's just been really special to see how he reacts to it and to remember how Tommy felt about it when he was 18.
Watching Kaylor drive the car gives me the feeling of this must be how my dad looked and how he felt driving the car. It always kind of makes me tear up because I know, and just he's so excited about it all the time. He wants to go in it all the time. He wants to drive it all the time. Before you all finished it, he would have dreams about it. He'd come and say, "When are they going to get the car done? I want it done. I'm having dreams about that car every night." He was just so eager. But we all enjoy it, and we all enjoy watching Dad enjoy it because there's so little for him to enjoy right now that it's so refreshing that he has that to look forward to. That car's my dad, so that's my favorite part about the car. So having it is like having him.